Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. For today's midweek meta deck, we are playing DNSolver's Legacy Challenge winning Patchwork Stompy deck. Now, I played a Patchwork Stompy deck a few weeks ago. It looked a lot like this one, except I had two Synergies and a few other little minor tweaks, but it was pretty close to this. And now this one has won a Legacy Challenge, so here we are playing it again. When I played it last time, I did also think that we wanted less Synergies. So nice to see that that's sort of borne out in the results here. So what is this deck for those who are unfamiliar? Well, we are playing a bunch of artifacts that cost 0 mana in order to power out some powerful effects like Thoughtcast and Thought Monitor. So we can keep ourselves drawing loads of cards, and also Emry, Lurker of the Loch. We can play this on turn 1 due to playing all these 0 drops, and then we can just reuse our baubles, basically just be drawing an additional card every turn cycle. And then what we're doing with all this is playing some Patchwork Automatons and making them large, or we're putting a Kappa Cannoneer into play, or a Synergy. So we're just making like a big aggressive threat and then protecting it with things like Force of Will and Chalice of the Void, which is almost always going to be on 1 for us, and that's going to shut off a lot of removal and annoying things our opponents could have. We also have a bunch of Urza Saga, which is going to be a very potent way of making some enormous constructs given the amount of artifacts in our deck. We've got a modest little package of 3 for our Urza Saga singletons, so we've got a Spellbomb, a Needle, and a Shadowspear, but obviously we can always get our 0 drops too. We have 1 Otawara to bounce some stuff, and some soul lands to power bits and pieces out. We have the 1 island, which we can fetch with our Lorien Revealed, and we also have a Seagate Restoration, which is a land that can also pitch to Force of Will. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this deck. We pile on a massive guy whilst disrupting our opponent, or we just sort of outclass them with card advantage. That's pretty much what we're aiming to do. From the sideboard, we've got largely what you'd expect, some more counter spells for combos and stuff like that. A couple of Hydroblast because, you know, goblins everywhere. It's a very strong deck. Let's try and fight those as best we can. Also, Blood Moon, shutting down our Aether Spellbomb and stuff can be really annoying. Flusterstorms again for the combo matchup. A bit of graveyard hate. A nice little catch-all in Haywire Mite to blow up some problem permanents. 4 Dismember, because when we need to kill a creature, we want to have access to do that, so we've just gone for 4 here, which is an interesting choice. And we have 1 Hull Breacher to mess with decks trying to draw a bunch of cards that can sort of match our ability to draw. We can sort of stop them from being able to do that. Also good against things like Echo of Eons decks. Alright, so that's the list. I was going to play the deck that won the Belgian Legacy Cup this past weekend, but they haven't actually released the deck list at the time of recording, so maybe that'll wait till next week. Alright, let's just jump into this one. Remember to like and subscribe, it really does help the channel. And let's Patchwork Stompy some people. If you're looking to play Legacy on MTGO like me, why not try Card Hoarder? They're a rental service that I personally use, and I found them better than other rental services that I've used in the past. So why not give them a try? Welcome to round 1. We are on the play. Our hand allows us to put a Patchwork Automaton into play on turn 1. 1, 2, 3 artifacts, 2 mana. We play the Patchwork. Now, it does take a decent amount of our artifacts is the only issue. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're getting pretty close to having a turn 2 Kappa Cannoneer. This is when you cast an artifact, not when an artifact comes into play, so you won't be able to pump it using it as a Saga. The other option we have here is to play an Emry on turn 1. So we could play... I don't think we want to do the Saga though. Alright, I think we are putting the Patchwork into play now. Just get a difficult to deal with threat. And our deck is pretty good at growing this anyway, so we do have a choice about what we do with this Bauble. We could keep it for potential Kappa Cannoneer, because if we draw a 0 drop we can just put that into play on turn 2, and that's going to be a big beefy boy. It should be enough. Let's see what our opponent's up to here. A Thoughtseize. Alright, let's see what they take here. Because we left the Bauble, they might go for the Cannoneer here. Yep, they've gone for the Cannoneer, which means we are going to be firing the Bauble off. Let's see what our opponent attracts. Okay, so they're on a deck similar to one we played the other day. Although they might just be straight up reanimated, to be fair. Rather than just... this might just be for sideboarding. For show and tell. Alright, let's play this Lotus Petal. There's a Saga. Now, if we play the Emry, we do not have Force of Will available. Now, it's quite telegraphed if we don't play this Emry, but given we've seen the Atraxa from our opponent, I think it's important that we hold up some protection against what they could be doing. They can also reanimate our own Kappa Cannoneer, which is a bit rude. A Ponder. Okay, so it is much more like the deck we played the other day. That was like a blue-black deck that has like reanimation-y scam. Okay, now we've got some Ancient Tombs in there as well. Okay. I'm not really sure what it is. When I say the other day, it might not have gone up live on the channel, so apologies for spoilers. Can't remember what order these videos are going out in just yet. Okay. Thoughtcast. This costs 1 mana. Would I rather Thoughtcast here or get the Emry down? We might be able to do both if we Thoughtcast. So let's try this. So we play this Saga. We can use it to activate this turn, and then next turn we can activate both because of the Ancient Tomb. We're just holding up this Force of Will and hoping it's good. Our opponent should know that we have this Force of Will. The Ancient Tomb in our opponent's deck makes me believe that our opponent is on a blue-black list with Show and Tell. So it might be Reanimate and Show and Tell combined. A Dark Ritual from our opponent. Now, we could counterspell this, but if our opponent is planning on... This could be a bait spell, and then they drop a blue source and Show and Tell. Or this could be a spell that gets them where they need to go and gets them a discard spell to go along with it. But because of the Ancient Tomb, I'm kind of thinking more about the Atraxa here. Because this is in their hand right now. So if this is just a way to try and bait out a counterspell and then try and Show and Tell us. Because if they have to reanimate, they need to cast a way of putting a creature in the graveyard first. Yeah, okay. Our opponent's got 4 cards in hand. One of them is an Atraxa. We can pay for a daze. No daze. Right, now we get to start beating for big amounts of damage. Alright, I would like to activate this using these. Get ourselves another construct. Is it the Aether Spellbomb, probably? So if we attack for 7, 8, 9, we can make it 10. That stops us playing around days. We're not playing anything around the days anyway. So I think we are just making a construct, attacking for a big bunch. So here's 10. We have lots of lethal threats. And their Ancient Tomb puts them to 1, but 1 is importantly not 0. But we have an Aether Spell and we can fire off if they do put a creature into play. So putting an Atraxa into play is not good enough to beat this board. We can't put anything in. Omniscience. Okay. This can be us though. If they go fetch an Emrakul. Because bouncing an Emrakul does not help. There is an Emrakul in there. So play the Emrakul. They attack us in the air. We bounce the Atraxa. I guess that's their only potential route to victory. So if we bounce the... Yeah, so they're going to attack us for 15 and blow up a bunch of our permanents. We can bounce the Atraxa and hopefully when they replay it doesn't find another Emrakul or another draw spell or whatever. That's how we try and not die here. If only we had a Pyrite Spellbomb. Okay. So when they go to attacks, we bounce this. We lose a bunch of permanents. Right, we have 2 lethal threats here. Now, I guess part of the issue here is that our opponent gets to replay this Atraxa, which is a lifelink body that we can't really get around. That's another problem. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, a bit awkward, but we've got some nice tools for this. Things like Flusterstorm and Force of Negation being particularly nice. Haywire Mite can blow up an Omniscience, so I'm not opposed to having that in there. This is not really a matchup where Shadowspear is going to be doing a great deal of work. Neither the Pithing Needle. And then we get to the hard part of what comes out next. Now our opponent could be doing some graveyard shenanigans. So maybe we do want the Soul Lantern, but I'm not sure if they are. Which puts us in a bit of an awkward spot. The usual is to trim a Bauble or 2. That's quite a common strategy here. And then we have 3 more cuts to find. So we need to apply pressure, because if we're not applying pressure, we're not winning the game. And then our opponent just has enough time to just get us done. So Kappa Cannoneer is a big bit of pressure. So I don't really want to get rid of those. Chalice of Void stops a lot of their cantrips and things. So I think the Chalice is probably still pretty good. The Thought Monitor is expensive, so maybe this is what goes. What's our blue count like? 9, 4 is 13. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So I don't really want to cut any more blue cards. Which leaves us in an awkward spot for what the last cut is. Our Flusterstorm works through our own Chalice because the copies still happen. In case you're curious about that one. I don't think we can cut another Bauble. We could cut a Mox. Maybe it's a Mox. Let's try that. Because obviously Moxes aren't great in multiples. They can still do stuff, but they just become Lotus Petals. So, interesting. Interesting choices here. I think the correct play is on turn 1 to get our pressure down. I don't believe we're going to need to Force of Will this turn. And I'd rather have less cards in hand. Although we already have stuff that they're going to want to take with the Thoughtseize. So maybe we are supposed to do this now. Alright, they've got an Atraxa in hand. So that's quite a key part of what they're trying to accomplish. Alright, let's draw a card. A Kappa Cannoneer. We can get Thoughtseized here. Or is this going to be a cantrip? Let's go for this Chalice of the Void. So this grows our Patchwork. Casting a Brainstorm first. Might as well, because they're not going to be able to do much with it. And they might find a way of interrupting our Loch piece here. Alright, so I think the correct play here is to hold up the Flusterstorm. We don't really want to let our Flusterstorm guard down at any point. If we can avoid it. So I'm looking to draw a blue source. We now know that we can't be Thoughtseized because of the Chalice. So it means our Flusterstorm is much more likely to actually do the things it needs to do. Verdant Catacomb from our opponent. Tropical Island. Lotus Petal. Okay, so that's one for the Storm. Right, we will try and Flusterstorm this. So this is effectively 2 Force Spikes because our first one gets countered. So that's quite a hard thing for our opponent to interact with there. Right, now we don't have the Flusterstorm to hold up. We can use our blue mana in other ways. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we could just make a Kappa Cannoneer here. So this will be a 5, and this will put this up to 4. So that'll be 9. I think that's worth doing. Force of Will, pitching that Atraxa that we saw earlier. Right, this still grows our Patchwork, but we don't get attack in with our Patchwork, so we have to use it for mana purposes. Who's got another Show and Tell ready to go? No. Okay. Or they might not have a threat. Power Emry. Pop our Graveyard out because it's an important zone. This should be 3 mana now. Well, no, it's 1. 1, 2. Oh no, yeah, sorry, we got see the Synod. There's only 1 mana. Of course. Right, let's end some meals. I think we want to keep this Otawara in hand. This is 5. So we have lethal next turn because we can fetch a Bauble with our Emry, and then we sack it, it will pump our Ginger. And when we cast it, it will pump our Patchwork. Right, the One Ring, that does not help us here. We don't have the green mana for the Haywire Mite. But if we draw it, we might want to do something with it. Okay. Let's pump this. Let's get our Haywire Mite back. Oh wait, that doesn't work, does it? Because of our own Chalice. Whoops. That's a bit of a mistake there. So we've missed out a point of damage on growing this guy now. That is a little bit on the embarrassing side. We still have Otawara held up though. We could bounce the One Ring, but that doesn't feel like a great prospect here. We just need to ride out what's happening. If they put something into play, we can bounce the Omniscience. If they like cast a spell and we get an ability to respond. We should have just got a Bauble there and tried to see an extra card. It could have been a Force of Will, which would have been helpful. So that's definitely a punt from our side of the table there. Alright, so drawing some extra cards with the One Ring. We can Otawara our own Chalice if that's the thing we want to do. Just so we can play the Haywire Mite. Because we won't have to use a Lotus Petal to channel the Otawara because we have a legend in play with Emry and Ginger. Wait, it only costs it's going to only cost 2. Yikes. Do we put this Emry in to mill 4? What are we looking for? I don't know if there's anything good we're looking for. So I think we just have to say no to this one. Alright, there's the Atraxa. We can bounce this right now, but we don't need to do it right now. Let's see what they reveal. None of these stop us from winning the game next turn. Oh, they can recast they can cast another One Ring, I guess. That's pretty effective. Force of Will, Omniscience, Polluted Delta, One Ring. Force of Will, Omniscience, Polluted Delta, 1. I'm not casting the ring. Alright, excellent. Let's just get rid of this. And we have lots of lethal damage here. Alright, we got a game. Let's go to the next one. Yeah, so we wouldn't have drawn the Force of Will if we'd have actually done the correct play of putting a Bauble into play. But we would have got close to a Force of Will. But it ended up not mattering, but that was definitely a misplay from us. Let's go to the third game. I don't believe we changed anything and just going straight back in. Alright, this is an Urza Saga hand with counter magic. That's the plan. Which is reasonable. We would like to find another blue card. They shuffle their library off that ponder, so it's over to us. Alright, so now we have double forces. And we're just going to make some Urza Saga constructs. And that should hopefully be enough. Right, Urza Saga goes to 2. Our opponent didn't do anything on their turn. Let's play this Ancient Tomb and pass. So we've got another blue card as well now. So we can actually play Emry next turn and start getting some card advantage whilst we're pootling along. Or we could try and do a Thoughtcast. We're probably not going to have... We have 1, 2, 3 artifacts. So not quite enough. Alright. Right, so they brainstorm, but no shuffle effect yet. They could have like a Lorien Revealed that they'll shuffle at some point. Show and tell. Force of Will... Force of Negation, pitching, Thoughtcast. Force of Will. Would I rather have the show and tell exiled? Or would I rather have it in their graveyard? That's kind of what we're trying to decide right now. I think I'd rather just have it in their graveyard. I don't think it's actually going to matter. So if they have some sort of Murktide Regent pivot, we would want it in the exile, so they have slightly fewer cards. Alright, so we're going to make some constructs. And then I think we're just going to be getting some card advantage here. Pop our graveyard out. Some relatively juicy toys over there. We're supposed to have attacked first before doing that. That was a mistake. I missed a point of damage. Whoops. Alright, they have a Lorien Revealed, so they do have a shuffle effect. Will they do it in their upkeep? Because they still have 1 card on top of their library, I think, from the previous brainstorm. Yeah, there it goes. The 1 ring. Okay. Slight punishes us for not getting the Haywire Mite. But assembling Emry Bauble seems like a thing I want to do. If we play out this Emry first, it might find us more options. So we'll keep the one that can tap this turn. Let's see if this mills us a Haywire Mite or something. Sir Ginger. Is that where I want to be? I'll play out some artifacts. And if we just play this one out, we can't kill our opponent because of the 1 ring. It's a case of what do I want out of our... We're already at 15, so 1 Emrakul hit kills us, so we don't have to worry about tapping our Ancient Tomb anymore. We probably just want to draw more cards here. So our opponent's working with over there. We have to choose ourselves, actually, don't we? We could cycle this, so we have the option of potentially having blue card Force of Will, but I think being able to bounce like an Attraxer or something would be really useful. Right, Flusterstorm, that's a good hit. That's something difficult for them to overcome with a bunch of cards. So this 1 ring has to get them where they need to go this turn, really. Or they could just play another 1 ring and fog for a turn. Alright, our opponent is showing us their hand. There's a bunch of stuff there, but nothing that necessarily makes a difference right now. Because we've already won this one. Alright, can't say further than that. Let's go to the next round. We managed to get there. We didn't play perfectly, but we missed a point of damage in this game, and we tried to play a Haywire Mite in the previous game. So we did not play optimally, but we did manage to get there. Let's go to round 2. Alright, we have a turn 1 Emry hand, which is fine. We're on the play, so we don't have to worry about Thoughtseize or Daze. But if our Emry gets bodied, then we're in a little bit of trouble. Urza's Bauble, Emry, let's go. Let's see what we find. Pop out our graveyard. Okay. I think we want to start cracking these. See what our opponent's got. A Golgari Thug. Okay, so we're probably looking at Blue-Black Dredge. Alright, see the Synod, Mox Opal. Not really any more action, but we do have a Patchwork Automaton we can play next turn. And then start growing it. We also have a Chalice we can put into play to stop card draw effects that usually cost 1 mana. Things like Careful Study, for example. A Golgari Thug and a Dread Return. Do I have 1 Dredger? What is important to me here? Do I want to get a Patchwork and start growing it? Do I want to Chalice and try and stop additional draws so they're just on the slow boat to Dredgetown? So let's get this Chalice going. Play this, we'll have 1 artifact, 2 artifact. So we won't actually have our Mox Opal live. So do we even need to pay life for this? I don't think we do. Although our opponent does play Daze in the deck, so I think we probably want to just use the Chalice, the Ancient Tomb to cast the Chalice. So if we play out this Mox Opal, what does it actually achieve? Nothing. So we probably want to hold it so that when we play the Patchwork, we've just got a free counter on it. And playing it whenever doesn't really make a difference because it's 0, and our opponent's not going to be playing Chalice effects or anything like that. Alright, they did a little dredge. It wasn't particularly exciting. They're not going to be able to draw any additional cards here. Unless they've got something like a breakthrough. Just playing the Golgari Thug. Let's just play out some artifacts. I've got 3 artifacts. I should play the Patchwork first. Yep, that was an error. Oh dear, not really used to playing Emry, unfortunately. That was just a massive punt there. We've lost 1 damage from the Mox Opal there. Alright. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So we've got a bunch of artifacts. Our next turn looks pretty good. We're going to have to pop our opponent's graveyard out as well here. So what have we got here? Dread Return. There's 1 Bridge from Below and an Icarid now. Alright, so they can just use this Cabal Therapy just to sacrifice guys. So it's not a misplay to play it into the Chalice. We're just going to take this 1. Yep, this is going to get them a Bridge from Below token. I do not believe it was worth trading trading Patchwork for the 1 bridge. 2 bridges I might trade it for. Cephalid Colosseum, that's a pretty potent one. That allows them to draw a whole bunch of cards. There's a Hogak in there, a 2nd bridge, a 3rd bridge. So we're going to be casting Emry on our turn to remove their bridges. Let's get rid of these bridges. Mill ourselves a little bit. Anything exciting in there? So Ginger, Patchwork. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we can play patches to grow our other patches. And then we can 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if we go and get ourselves back, it doesn't really matter which bauble, to be honest. This will grow both our patches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's get another guy. We'll bash with our 4/4. We are very in control of this game right now. We can get 1 Icarid back, but they have only 1 bridge left in their entire deck. Well, they could Dread Return like a Hogak, but that's not even good when we have big Kappa Cannoneer and stuff. They did not hit a bridge with their dredge. Otherworldly Gaze is uncastable. Right, they're just going to put a Hogak into play. Alright, Lotus Petal, and play this and grow the Kappa. And obviously the Patchworks too. Let's draw some more cards. Play another artifact. So we could cast Lorien Revealed to try and get some more. I don't think we're going to get this to lethal this turn, but I would like to have our Patchworks being a bit bigger. If we play the Seat, we don't get Urza Saga tokens, but we do get to grow our Patchworks. So I think that's... Oh, we don't get to grow our Patchworks, it's just our Kappa Cannoneer that we get to grow. So we can play one of these. Let's get Bauble. I think maybe I should have been starting off with a Patchwork and just get more guys. That's certainly an option that was available to us that we didn't take. Let's save our life total when we do this draw. Okay, so you have a Force of Will, which isn't the worst. We could play a Chalice to make this a 10-10. That will also make this an 8-8, so we'll trade with a Hogak. Is trading with the Hogak important to me right now at the cost of 2 life? I think it's worth it still. What's top card of our library? A Bauble. Not very exciting. What's top card of our opponent's library? Golgari Grave Troll. That's fine. See running card in their hand. Let's attack with our 10/10. They only have 1 Icarid. They can't flashback Otherworldly Gaze in their upkeep. We also get to draw some more cards here. Shadowspear, a bit of an awkward one, but it is what it is. So we have 1 artifact, 2 artifact. We have 2 guaranteed artifacts next turn. So our Kappa Cannoneer should be unblockable. They did not mill over another bridge. Alright, we got that one. Again, apologies, that was a little bit sloppy from me, but if we're playing a bit sloppy and still winning, that's good for the deck. But I think, like, we missed 1 point of... Was that this game? We missed a point of power on the Patchwork, and maybe our choice of things bringing back with Emry could have been a little bit different as well. Okay, so I would like a Soul Guide Lantern, please. And then, where are we at? Kind of the general thing with Dredge is you counterspell like the first thing that you can, and that's usually reasonable. Hull Breach doesn't do anything because it replaces the draw effect, so it's not going to make any difference. Haywire Mite is a creature that we can sacrifice. Is that good enough to play? I'm not convinced it is. So these things are useful. Pithing Needle is good for Cephalid Colosseum. Aether Spellbomb bouncing out Hogak can be useful with Shadowspear. So probably trimming a couple of baubles. And then, where are we at? An X1 is actually pretty reasonable here because we can throw it under the bus. Maybe we're supposed to be... Like, the unblockable of the Kappa Cannoneer is really good here. I can't overstate how good that is. Then we trim a Thought Monitor. Maybe the Lorien Revealed can go. And we're still looking for 3 more cuts if we want to board all these in. Maybe we're not supposed to board all of them in. I don't just want to have like loads and loads and loads and loads of counter spells. So maybe Flusterstorm. Because they will be running things like Dazes to protect their own stuff anyway. Okay, turn 1 Chalice is pretty strong in this matchup. As you saw. If we draw a 0-drop on our turn, we can deploy the Emry as well as our Chalice, because we'll have Chalice, Mox Opal, 0-drop, and the Mox taps for the Emry. That'd be a nice start. I will keep this hand. Our opponent's mulligan to 5. Now, the Dredge deck is pretty resilient to mulligans, because it kind of just needs to do its one thing and start the ball rolling. But the less pieces it has, the less chance it has of protection or further gas. Like, it might be able to mill itself a little bit to begin with, but then it will struggle to follow that up and just be dredging at normal speeds. Can I have a Chalice of the Void, please? I believe our opponent is going to cast Otherworldly Gaze in response. There it is. This game will pop that graveyard out because it's quite a key zone in this game. No Dredger. And we're in. I'm not going to play the Mox Opal. We can play that next turn. Oh, they did have a Dredger in there. I missed the Stinkweed Imp. Alright, so they've got themselves a Narcomoeba. Patchwork Automaton is a pretty good find here. We play out the Patchwork here. Now we have Metalcraft. Get our Emry down. Pop out our own graveyard because that's a key zone too. And we'll play as a Saga. Our Graveyard Hate is in the graveyard right now, but we didn't need Graveyard Hate last time, so. They have 2 Icarids, but they're the only black creatures in their graveyard, so they could sack one to bring one back, but I don't think they're going to get either of them back. Our opponent agrees. Alright, our opponent's just had enough. The turn 1 Chalice is pretty strong. So the thing about these blue-black Dredge decks is, in my experience, they're not as consistent at doing just dredging as like the classic Lion's Eye Diamond Dredge builds are. So because they're like sort of slower and trying to protect it, they're a little bit more sort of mid-rangey rather than trying to be explosive. Whereas like the Manalist Dredge or the classic AD Dredge, once it starts the ball rolling, it finds it easier to start the ball rolling, and once it starts rolling, you know, it can keep doing it. But obviously it's much more vulnerable to hate pieces like ley line and stuff like that, because it has to answer them, or like and doesn't have the ability to like bounce them as well as the blue-black build. The blue-black build also can counterspell things like endurance or whatever. So yeah, we are 2-0. I'll try and tighten up a little bit for the next round. I'm no expert with playing this deck though, and you can certainly see that. Nevertheless, I think we're showcasing what our deck can do pretty effectively. Right, we're on the play. We can play a turn 1 Chalice of the Void, and then next turn play a Sir Ginger. I think that's acceptable. At some point we'll find the mana for an Emry. Don't you worry about that. Right, we'll play the Sir Ginger first actually. I think we're going to want to get the pressure down because I don't know if the Chalice is going to be the right. Okay, so we're going to have a look at our opponent's hand here. I suppose what we could have done is play the... Okay, our opponent's got a Thoughtcast. Oh no, this is us scrying. Of course it is. Do I want this? No, we don't. We need a blue source before we do that. Very confused for a second then. I've not actually managed to scry with Sir Ginger yet. So there's a underground sea over there. Am I going to regret? Patches we'll put on top of our library. Hogak. Okay. So maybe playing the Chalice would have been better than the Sir Ginger. That was my initial thought. But I figured just sticking a 5/3 into play on turn 1 is pretty solid. Pithing Needle. Okay, that's a 1-drop we can cast before we do the Chalice. But I don't really know what we'd name in this matchup because there's a few Hogak lists bubbling around at the moment. It could be the one I played on my channel a little while back, or it could be the one I played against the other day that was a little bit slower and fairer. Okay, we're just getting snuffed out here. If I think our opponent has Dazes in their deck, I'm not supposed to play this Pithing Needle first. So I think we are just going to play this Chalice on 1. I think it would have been better if we led off with this. Alright, they got Force. Pitching Ponder. So that means they probably don't have a Daze. So now we can deploy the Pithing Needle if we want to, but what would we name with it is the question. We could name something like Polluted Delta. I'm just trying to think. They could have... Like, I haven't seen a Hogak deck running Altar of Dementia for a long time, so I'm not expecting Altar of Dementia. Maybe it is just a Polluted Delta. They're going to have 4 of them in their deck. This is just artifact count later on for our Saga. So probably doing Saga instead of Patches next turn. Stitcher's Supplier. Sure. Another one. Into Hogak. That's probably getting close to game there. They're reanimating the Stitcher's Supplier. Yep, if we'd have tried the Chalice on turn 1 and it got countered, we could have tried on turn 2 and we'd have been fine. But now they're just going to put Hogak into play. Which is going to be large. How do we beat Hogak? I think we probably put a Shadowspear on a guy and hope that we can do something with that. Should have gone with my first instinct and played the Chalice instead of the Sir Ginger. Make a 2/2. We take 10. I don't think we can win this one. Like bouncing the Hogak isn't very useful either. I think we just go next. Yeah, so my logic for changing my mind and playing the Sir Ginger was that a 5/3 guy is always going to be useful on board, whereas the Chalice might not be. Like it might be the opponent could be a Chalice deck of their own, whereas getting ahead on board is always going to be something that's working towards our game plan. But maybe that's my inexperience with this deck. Work on that one. Because I figured if we do that and then we can start assembling the stuff underneath with the Sir Ginger. Yes, we've got the Sir Ginger running underneath when we try and do the disruption, but it didn't really work out for us. Lesson learned. Okay. I would like this Soulguide Lantern. I don't particularly like the Flusterstorms as much as I did versus Dredge. It kind of leaves us in an awkward spot. Dismember doesn't kill 8/8s, so that's no good. So I think we're just going in with just the Soulguide Lantern. And I don't think the Pithing Needle looks particularly useful. I'm sure I'm going to be proved wrong and they're going to like wasteland me or something into the dirt. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this is the turn 1 Thoughtcast. Not bad. Then we can decide what we're doing with our baubles after we've drawn 2 cards. Maybe we crack them, maybe we keep them so we can Thought Monitor the turn after. We could Thoughtcast again at the cost of a Lotus Petal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think just keep drawing cards. So we could crack these and draw a bunch, or we could hold them and try and get our Thought Monitor and Kappa Cannoneer online. Like, we could play a Kappa Cannoneer as early as next turn, which is one of the few things on our deck that can reliably beat up on a Hogak. Ponder from our opponents. Now, the downside of this is we didn't draw ourselves towards like a Chalice or something, but by keeping them in play, they will effectively draw us cards from these cards. So it's kind of the same, just different. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I guess we're just playing this. That's our option. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can Thought Monitor here if we think that's better than the Emry. It might be. We've drawn a lot of cards. They would like to daze that, would they? I guess we say no to this. And hold back the force. And we can put a Kappa Cannoneer into play next turn, and we now know they've burnt their days. Reanimate on the Thought Monitor. Is that worth a Force of Will? It doesn't feel like it's worth a Force of Will. Like, it's annoying for sure, but they're taking 7, and we get to put a Kappa Cannoneer into play backed up by Force of Will. That feels like a much stronger line. Let's have a Kappa Cannoneer. I will force to protect this. The question is, what am I... It's probably the other force, although we would quite like to reload into a blue card on the following turn. Sure, I believe. Now we have four cards ready and waiting. Just kind of have to fade this one turn, really. Alright, we're going to lose a lot of our permanents here. Yikes. Alright, we're not going to draw those 4 cards. Wish we had the Emry now. Haven't seen Engineering Explosives for a while. We do still have a 5/5. Alright. It's a 6/6. Which is an important distinction when our opponent was on 11. Yep. A Brainstorm. So we're basically just looking for a 0 mana artifact. Right, if we don't find one, they can still block with a Thought Monitor, and then we just get to gobble that up. And then the next turn they have to put down a blocker, but they have things like Stitcher's Supplier, which are pretty good blockers if we don't have unblockability. Verdant Catacombs over there. Brainstorm. Now we're going to hold this Seagate Restoration as a blue card, which is kind of interesting because that's exactly what we said it would often be in the deck, in the deck tech, and there it is. I still think we were right for the line we did. I don't think we're supposed to try and play around and engineer explosives out the board. And I think this Kappa Cannoneer, even if we knew that was coming, is still the best thing to do. A Stitcher's Supplier. I don't think I care about the first one. There's a Hogak and some Bowmasters. A Brainstorm. Again, that's fine. So either this Stitcher's Supplier goes under the bus or our creature is unblockable. They still got to make a couple more land drops before they can even target the Kappa Cannoneer. Our opponent's going to 3. This one gets the counterspell because this plays the Hogak. They have a Force of Will too. Okay, so they're going to get Hogak into play. If we find a Bauble, we win the game. Lotus Petal, Seat of the Synod. Like most of our, not most of our deck, but like a good chunk of our deck, like 20 odd cards, does just flat out win us the game this turn. Like this one. This is whenever an artifact enters the battlefield, so it's not like Patchwork, it doesn't care about cast triggers. Okay, so we've got to game 3. I don't think there's anything I want to change. I think we're just going to go back in. Alright, our opening hand isn't great, but it does have Soul Guide Lantern, which I think is probably worth keeping here. But we have like a redraw here. We've got access to blue mana once. The Spellbomb is also quite nice. Stitcher's Supplier. Sure. We're going to leave that graveyard popped out because it's important. Hogak already. Understood. Can we get a Soul Guide Lantern? And pay around a days here. Alright, they have the Force of Will for Soul Guide Lantern. Alright. We play out this Aether Spellbomb. Play out Bauble. I won't play out the Lotus Petal. I would like to draw a card here though. Maybe we'll play out the Lotus Petal depending on what we see. Orcish Bowmasters. So we can bounce a Hogak out of play. I think that's better than drawing a card. So we've played the Lotus Petal, so we have the mana to do that if they put Hogak in. Which will wipe a decent chunk of their graveyard. Emry. Okay, that's a good payoff there. That allows us to redeploy the Saga Lantern over and over and over again. Hopefully we won't have to Force of Will anything. This Grief is a little bit of a problem. Alright, they took out Emry, which is not unexpected. Supplier. They're going to put Hogak into play. If they do, we bounce it, and then we're just hoping to draw some stuff. Okay, over to us. We've drawn nothing. Okay, let's pass that over. Brainstorm is a very good find for our opponent there. Our Mox Opal isn't turned on, so we can't do a Force of Will. At least we're getting beaten down by 2 instead of having Hogak smashing into us. And Urza's Bauble. This turns on Force of Will for us as an option. So I'm going to leave this and then crack the Bauble on our opponent's turn. I don't really want to have to use this Bauble. This Force of Will. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this gives them a Hogak. Is it better to counterspell this, or is it better to counterspell the Hogak, which will leave 1 card in their graveyard? I think it's better to let them have the Stitcher Supplier and reduce the amount of cards in their graveyard. That's close though. Another Hogak, sure. Not putting a Hogak in. Interesting. Alright, let's just Bauble then. Snuff out. Not unhelpful to know about. Emry. Okay. It's our blue card for Force of Will. But we can use this and control their board by bouncing the Hogak and then just keeping their graveyard down. So it does get us where we need to go. I don't really want to play the City of Traitors. So I guess we're passing. Maybe we draw a blue card off of... No, we've already drawn from our Bauble, haven't we? Sorry. We're going to get hit by... one... No, we're not going to get hit by anything, right? We're just going to have the Hogak coming into play. I don't think they're going to attack into the Emry. Unless I want to force damage. They can force through 2, but that doesn't really change things when they can just put Hogak into play. Okay. There's a Hogak. We will need to find... Uh-oh. Oh yeah, we knew about Snuff Out as well, didn't we? Whoops. The other option we have there is to hold up the Force of Will and stop the Hogak from coming into play. Thought card. Yeah, I don't think we're winning this one. Yeah, I don't think our deck lines up very well into this Hogak, because they're kind of doing a similar thing to us where they get the card advantage by having cards in graveyard, and then they're playing a big thing, but they don't need to grow their thing, it's just an 8/8 straight up. So it's kind of reminds me a little bit of what we're doing, except they have discard instead of counter magic. Well, actually they have discard and counter magic, because they have the Force of Wills and the Griefs. So yeah, kind of similar in how they play out a little bit. They don't have quite the same card advantage engine we have, but I've been quite impressed with some of these Hogak decks I've been seeing lately. They also can operate on low resources with just like Troll and Reanimate it, and not something we can block. But yeah, I definitely think we could have played that one a little bit differently, but I'm not sure we could have won that one. Alright, let's go to round 4. So this would be a turn 1 Chalice, but not really anything else. I think we need to have like some kind of engine or momentum in our opening hand here. I like this one more. I'm still not sure about it. Like, Urza Saga is an engine to pump out some guys. We don't have a blue card to go as Force of Will, but we could keep the Force of Will and try and hit off of the Bauble. I guess the Pithing Needle is the thing I'm least confident about working. Right, let's Bauble our opponent first and see if they have any useful information for us. Grove of the Burn Willows. So that's probably lands. Kind of wish I had that Pithing Needle now. So I think we're supposed to play Snow Covered and Lotus Petal, and we'll put the Chalice on 1, shutting off Crop Rotation and Exploration. And then we'll play Aether Saga, then we'll try and grind out some constructs, but we're probably going to lose to Wasteland. Okay. Grove of the Burn Willows plus Underground Sea means we're probably playing against Check Pile. Okay. So now we have a Force of Will. Aether Saga is going to be pretty good. Check Pile can run Wastelands Day. Volcanic Island. Ah yes, the Shadowspear in hand. The classic. Alright, we've got Force of Will, we've got some constructs to poop out. Let's hope that does enough. Nope, don't care about Bowmasters. Like, Dress Down is something I'm more impassioned to destroy. Also, Pernicious Deed, which is very good against our deck. We've shut off all our opponent's cantrips with this Chalice, which is quite nice. Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath. Okay, but I don't think we care about the front side of that. It's the back side there, where we have to consider countering it. So they're kind of incentivized to throw a bunch of cantrips into the abyss of the Chalice of Void just so they can make some fuel for the Uro. Right, we'll make a 3-3. We'll untap. We'll make a 4-4, and then become a 5-5. What do I want here? We don't have a Soaring Lantern in the main deck, which is kind of annoying. We could get a Bauble and just start drawing cards, but there's an Orcish Bowmaster on the battlefield, so we probably just want the Spellbomb here. And then just rely on what we have in play being enough to win the game with a Force of Will backup. Which isn't a crazy idea. Right, under the bus, the Orkami Gaze. Seagate Restoration. There's a blue card. I don't know if we want to give our opponent anything here though. Snuff Out. Paying 4 life. I think this game is about keeping our guys alive. If we get hit by... Drown the Loch's kind of annoying. I was going to say, if we get hit by Pernicious Deed, that's annoying, but... We still have a 5-5. So we can cast a Thought Monitor, but it will immediately die to Orcish Bowmasters. And give them another guy. So I don't think we're supposed to play that. Punishing Fire. There it is. Hardcast Lorien Revealed. That's a lot of cards. Ancient Tomb. Play this one out. Just hope our 5-5 can go the distance. Right, buying back fires. Well, they might not buy it back. They might just be tapping their sources. So they have enough to put an Uro into play now, which I believe is what they're doing. So I believe we bounce this in response to the triggers in case they have something like a Stifle in their deck, which is possible. You see a few Grixis lists running Stifle these days. Alright. Wasteland. So that shuts off any Urza Saga draws we may have. Alright, no, they're just going for Ancient Tomb straight up. That's fine. It's not really what this game is about at the moment. Urza's Bauble. We'll play this one out. Back up to being a 5-5. Alright. Petty Theft. So this now costs 3 mana, so we can do this, but we'll just be giving them a token. Oh dear. Do we have any good options here? Just losing our petal just to draw, it doesn't seem right. I don't mind using a Bauble. I think that's more acceptable than putting this Thought Monitor into play. Just got to hope the virtual card advantage of Chalice shutting off a bunch of their spells is working for us here. There is an Uro. Right, so they got some value off of an Uro, and they're starting their little beatdown. Do I want to throw this Thought Monitor into the abyss now? This costs 2, right? Sure. If they ping us down, they're not pinging us, but we do need something here. We need like a Kappa Cannoneer level card. Alright, Aether Saga's pretty good. Although they suspiciously got this Wasteland hanging around in their graveyard, which makes me suspicious. Alright, so we can start cranking out some very large Saga tokens. So we're going to leave these Baubles intact for now. Yep, here comes a Brazen Borrower. Assassin's Trophy is very good here. We do have an island though, which is in play, isn't it? Yes, okay. Oh dear, oh dear. I don't believe that we can win this game. I think I'd rather have the time. Actually, that's not true. We could play a Kappa Cannoneer. It's Kappa Cannoneer or bust time. But our opponent is very much running away with this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we can crack 1 Bauble. If our plan is Kappa Cannoneer. Okay, Polluted Delta, that's not too scary. Sir Ginger. It's a threat. On the bottom. Alright, I don't particularly like this, but yeah, we're just going to scry 3 times. We probably should scry with a Bauble first, and then the Petal, and then the Bauble on their turn, but let's see where they point this ping. That's the Ginger. What does the Ginger ever do to you? Alright, let's grow our Sir Ginger. Wow, just a lot of nothing. Plague Engineer. Alright. But I can just buy back this Punishing Fires and finish it off. I don't believe that we can win this game now. Like, the Kappa Cannoneer route's kind of gone. Alright, we got pretty well handled, I would say. Saga Lantern for the Uro is something I'm interested in. Hull Breacher is reasonable here. Hydroblast is potentially reasonable. Force of Negation is potentially reasonable. Flusterstorms also have a bit of text on them. Chalice on 1 is something I think is going to be actively good for us here. The Pithing Needle on Wasteland is acceptable. I don't really think we're Aether Spellbombing much here. Can bounce like a token. But if they, I suppose, do we think they have Minsk and Boo? We're going to want it for Minsk and Boo. And Pithing Needle's kind of the same deal. So is this... Like, we need to... I guess Pithing Needle on Pernicious Deed is useful. We probably need some Force of Negations for the Pernicious Deed as well. So trim on a Bauble. These. That's 60, isn't it? Let's try this. This one is a bit slow, but I think it's acceptable. We've got a little bit of protection for some of the stuff they're doing. We've got threats that are hard to answer, which is the key thing we're looking for. I think we will play out Patchwork ahead of Chalice. Our opponent wants to play like a long game. We need to get underneath them with a threat and pile on the counters. Force of Will, not unwelcome, but also not amazing. Alright, we've got a threat with Ward. That's step 1 to victory. How much do I care about this Pithing Needle? If we had another mana source, then I would probably play it, but I think it's just more important to get this Chalice down. So if I attack with my Patchwork Automaton and they have an Orcish Bowmasters, we lose our Patchwork. So we can't attack here. Alright, they're just going to snuff out instead. I think we're incentivized. Oh, we'll let them pay first. I think we're incentivized to protect our Automaton, but I am very worried about Pernicious Deed. I think we have to protect our threats. What are we pitching? Probably the Thought Monitor here. I'd like to keep our Kappa Cannoneer around, but if we have to pitch it to the Force of Negation, then I guess we do. Dak Faden. That gains control of artifacts, doesn't it? This matchup seems horrific. Alright. So now we're down to nothing but a 2-2 with Ward. And our opponent's going to have enough mana next turn to just answer this. Right, let's play this. Let's cast this into the Chalice so we can grow a Patchwork. But if our opponent goes land and then, you know, drown the Loch or something, that's probably game over. Dak Faden, also a problem. Gaining control of artifacts. Very awkward. So we probably have to attack the Dak, otherwise I just steal our Automaton next turn. Let's draw some cards first. Alright, that's pretty good. Attack the Dak. Play this. Got the Emry. If our opponent has Pernicious Deed and a mana, then we lose the game. And I will be scooping if that happens. A Dredge Life from the lane, which dredged a Pernicious Deed. Okay. Just fetch lands. That's acceptable. Sir Ginger will have haste if they play another Dak Faden, which is always interesting. Is it haste it gets? Haste, Hexproof, and Trample. Alright, we just lose our poor little Emry. But our Patchwork is kind of getting there. 5. Let's make this a 2-turn clock. Also means our Urza Saga constructs are going to be pretty large. Alright. What do you have for us, opponent? 4 mana. Just a Euro. Like, it's good. It's the turn before we get the Saga Lantern to remove it, so there is that. I think we took out our Spellbomb, didn't we? Yeah. Kind of regret that now. But they are forced to chump block with their Uro if they don't have a removal spell. Just make some friends. We're going to get dressed down. No, they're just fetching around Pithing Needle. So we get Shadowspear. Just whack it on a guy and go large. I think that's probably what we need to do here. Alright, they need to have a removal spell here. How to remove a spell. They can trade their Uro off and then replay it next turn. Yep. Okay. I think our opponent has this one. But I think if we don't... Like, we can attack with just the construct. But then they just remove it. And then we're facing down an Uro. That's just going to draw them into better things. I think we have to go for it there. Just because this game, the longer it goes on, I think it goes more and more in our opponent's favour. They've got so many strong haymakers as well. Like the Deed. And Dackfaden is a real pain. Now we do have a creature that can attack into this Uro and not die. So we'll need an answer to it. Just Dackfaden, steal it. Shoulder the Apocalypse. That's pretty apocalyptic, as it turns out. So if we attack with this construct, they will just take it. Which is a problem. So I think we just have to hold back here and then block the Uro. Take 4. And then just spam out a few more construct tokens. Yeah, this gains them more life each turn cycle. It's all just a bit of a disaster for us. Something like a Dackfaden here. And then they have all the options in the world. Yep. Gaining 3 from Uro, 2 from Sheoldred. Pretty savage combo. Alright. Let's see if we can gobble up this Uro. They'll play an Orcish Bowmasters and kill our construct. That's what I think is going to happen here. Nope, just Punishing Fire, sure. We knew they had the Punishing Fire, to be fair. We have to keep Uro off the board. We do have more constructs coming in. Yikes. We don't have an island anymore because we've got our one island in play. Our opponent is grinding us right out of this one. Like, we've got a lot of life to work with, but we need like a big draw like a Kappa Cannoneer to stand a chance here. We can permanently exile something like a Punishing Fires, for example. It will cost us 2 life off our Ancient Tomb. Like, we have a lot of dead draws given this Sheoldred being a real pain. Now, we don't really want our cantrips, we just want the things that we're looking for, like the Cannoneers and stuff. Alright. We only have 1 Cannoneer left in our deck as well. If we'd have kept in the Aether Spellbomb, we might have been able to win this game on that turn where we bounced where we attacked into the Uro with 2 creatures. Alright, just taking our licks there. Come on, deck. We'll save this in case we draw a Patchwork, so then we can at least grow it. Right, Wasteland shuts off one of our other draws in the form of Urza Saga. Bauble, it's not really it. I think we've had enough now, to be honest. Yeah, that matchup feels real tough. They've got lots of good removal at different CMCs. They're not just like curb stomped by a Chalice on 1. They've got sweepers. They've got the best sweeper in the form of Pernicious Deed, which absolutely destroys our deck. They've got Bowmasters and Sheoldred to mess with our like card advantage draws. And then they've also got things like Dackfaden, which can just steal our best threat, which is terrifying. So I'm not a big fan of being on this side of this matchup. All right, let's go to the final round. We're looking for the 3-2. On the play for the final round. What does our hand do? Nothing. Let's mulligan. What does this hand do? This hand plays Urza Saga and does Urza Saga things. I like Urza Saga. It's a fine Magic the Gathering card. So I think we are putting back the City. I'd rather have the stable mana of the Ancient Tomb. Let's play this out. And if we play out the Lotus Petal, we can just play an Emry out right now. Alright. Marsh Flats. Is this Reanimator? Feels like Reanimator. Really feels like Reanimator. Grizzlebrand, Archon of Cruelty. Okay, it's Reanimator. Are they going to reanimate one of these right now? I don't think we beat a reanimation on either of those creatures, to be honest. Yikes. So they get to draw 14 cards here if they want. I don't think we beat this. I think we can say goodnight and go to the next game. Okay, give me my Soul-Guide Lantern, my Flusterstorms, my Force of Negations. These are the things I would most like here. Now they could be boarding into like the sideboard plan of Orcish Bowmasters, Doughty Voidwalker type stuff, which is pretty good against our deck, truth be told. So we'll trim some pieces. Don't really want the Kappas, because that's just the thing that they can reanimate, which is pretty good. I guess the same sort of thing goes for Thought Monitor. We don't really want to trim all of our blue cards, do we? But we've got to make a choice somewhere, haven't we? Alright, maybe we'll trim a Thought Monitor as well. And then we at least have a Lorien Revealed, maybe if they're on the Mages of the Moon plan. But I think our main defense here is counter spells, rather than trying to mess with other bits and pieces. Like, we can play through Blood Moons reasonably well. We can play through Doughty Voidwalker and Bowmasters by out-muscling them. Just want to board a load of Dismembers and then feel like a clown when they just reanimate some massive yacht. We've got a counter spell, we've got an engine. I think this is good enough. I'm slightly reluctant to just play Emry straight away. I kind of want another land. I want to be able to hold up this Flusterstorm. So I think we just play out the Otawara here. And then we hold up the Flusterstorm and Force of Negation. And then if we can draw a 0-drop artifact or a land, then we can play the Emry and continue holding it up. And that would be fine. A Lotus Petal from our opponents, building Storm for our Flusterstorm. Obviously, if we have to fight with all our resources now, then we'll just be playing the Emry anyway. Right, this is a very good Force of Negation target, because it'll exile it permanently, so they won't get to flash it back later on. You want to hit the enablers generally with reanimated decks rather than the payoffs. Cast Unmask, target themselves. Okay. Grizzlebrand and reanimate. Alright. We get to basically stop our opponent's entire hand. Excellent. I would describe this hand as having worked out so far. But they do have a big monster in the graveyard, which is not the ideal for us. Alright, so we've got mana, we've got a bounce spell, we've got card advantage. Let's cycle this Lorien Revealed. Get our land. I think we would like the Bauble here. I think we'll just fire it off though. Animate Dead is in our opponent's hand. Alright. Force of Negation. Not a bad draw. Glad we did the Bauble. Then we're just going to keep drawing additional cards and hope that we can outmuscle what our opponent's doing. Flusterstorm. Love to see it. Doesn't counter Animate Dead though, so we've got to keep that in mind. Let's play Shadowspear. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we play... Says Bauble, we don't need to crack it this time. 1, 2... And then next turn we can start drawing additional cards with our Thoughtcasts. We could have chucked an Emry into play to have a look at more cards in the graveyard. Thoughtseize. Do I care about this Thoughtseize? Yes, I do. Just say no to this. Because Flusterstorm doesn't hit Animate Dead, which we know our opponent has. So we need to make sure that we have this. Alright, this is a good draw. Let's just get on the Bauble. Let's just load up on cards. I would like to draw a bunch of cards, please. And I would like to draw another bunch of cards. Alright, I think it's more important to get a threat in than anything else right now. Exhume, reanimate. We'd already seen the reanimate earlier, didn't we? Okay. We have Force of Negation and Emry. And we're also going to draw a whole bunch of cards here. If I can put the Chalice on 2, I will do that. Right, there is the Lotus Petal. Exhume. Say no to this. I'd like to be able to put a Chalice on 1 and a Chalice on 2. That would be the dream. So I think we're just drawing extra cards here. That's what we like to do. Puts on 2. That stops the Animate Dead. So we draw a next turn opponent. Another Animate Dead. Love to see. I don't believe we have to crack this Bauble until our opponent's turn. We might as well get the most amount of information in case it changes how we want to use our Emry. Alright, our opponent's had enough, and for good reason. That worked out pretty well for us. I don't think we want to be doing like Pithing Needle for Grizzlebrand or Hull Breacher. I think that's just... Things have already gone wrong if you're in that situation. And maybe they just get a different monster instead anyway. So we're just going to go back in like this. Okay, turn 1 Emry with a counterspell. I don't think we can say no to that. We can also work towards a Soul Guide Lantern in the coming turns. So this is like an end of turn Entomb. That's my guess here. Right. Let's play these out. Cast our Emry, and then we'll see what our baubles can do. Thought monitored. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we can cast Thought Monitor next turn if we don't crack these baubles. I think that's a good enough reason to not crack the baubles. Entomb. So we have to counterspell this one. Oh wait, we can't counterspell this with Force of Negation, can we? We need to wait till our opponent's turn. Yeah, this could be dicey for us. I think our opponent knows we have a Force of Negation as well now, because of how that works out. We get to stop this one. But the monster is already in the graveyard. Patches. I don't think it's time for patches. I think it's time for more counterspells. Hold on, have I done the maths right here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, I haven't done the maths right, have I? I've done the maths wrong here. So it's Bauble out of the graveyard here. I think we just need 3 fresh cards here. Got an Entomb. An Animate Dead. That's terrible news for us. What's the other one? Possibly the same Animate Dead. Alright, we got 3 cards coming. And we gotta hope they're good. That's a blue card. That doesn't help. That doesn't help. Not this turn anyway. So they play Grizzlebrand. And we lose the game. If we had drawn from those baubles the turn before, we would have got these cards first, and we would have been able to hold up Flusterstorm and off the Lotus Petal. Not that actually stops Animate Dead though. And the Saga Lantern was the next card down, so we wouldn't have had that. Actually, that's not true. We would have had it with our draw step, right? No, because we got the extra bauble off the Emry. Yeah, okay, no. So it wouldn't have made a difference if we'd have cracked those baubles. All right, opponent, you're on not a lot of life. We have an Aether Spellbomb. That can help. Shenanigans. That's cool. I like Shenanigans a lot as a card. Doesn't really see a lot of play. It's not really that good a card by Legacy standards, unfortunately. But I like it a lot. Okay. So I like Dark Blast a lot as well. I like stuff like that. Like little simple effects. It's quite fun to recur. Okay. So our opponent's going to put some large monsters into their graveyard. Among with some other things when they're going to clean up. Because they've got 15 cards in hand. So we can stop the next one. Seagate Restoration. So we take 1 hit from this Grizzlebrand. And then we get the... Alright, let's Saga Lantern first. We'll get rid of the Shenanigans now. And then we can wipe the graveyard in response to anything in a bit. So... I guess we play this. Do we want the mana? I don't think we want the mana here. 6, 6. So it is a difference of the clock. If we have this untapped. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we'll just get a Bauble here. So this gets us a Spellbomb. So that's 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So next turn, if we don't crack this, we can get Thought Monitor and activate our thing. But if we have to Flusterstorm this turn, then we don't get to do that. We kind of have another scary monster covered. Right, no blue, so no show and tell. Telling us right there. So they're going to bash us for 6 in the sky. We'll take it. I don't think they can afford to draw any cards here. I don't think we can play enough artifacts to kill them next turn. Does our opponent potentially think about Serenity? Which will blow up their own Animate Dead. So that's kind of an awkward one for them. But they do have like Entomb and some other stuff to reload with, no doubt. So that's a fine option. Quite tense, this one. They did also bring in the Doughty Voidwalker. So they could be playing that now to shut off our Emry from recurring like Saga Lantern. But let's see what they go for. It is the Serenity. Understood. A Doughty Voidwalker. We do not interact with that. So their own thing is dying next turn anyway. Interesting. Very interesting. So, what is the plan? Guess we're floating with this. And what can we get here and how will it help us out? Like, the Spellbomb isn't actually useful right now. We just need to grow our guy as much as possible. But we could Spellbomb so it's in the graveyard for Emry. But then, no, the Doughty Voidwalker gobbles it up, doesn't it? So we don't want that. We probably just want Baubles to draw more cards. Or, actually, how many artifacts do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we get a Lotus Petal or a Mox Opal here, they're both functionally the same because we have this other Mox Opal. Would I rather draw another Mox Opal if we're about to lose this one? Maybe. Okay, we'll get a Lotus Petal here. So, let's tag this Thought Monitor. So this costs 2. We're trying to draw enough artifacts to kill our opponent this turn. Okay, in other words, a Saga, that is useful. So this puts us to 7. This is 8. I think we have it. This is 9. So this is 8. We cast the Shadowspear. That's 9. We equip the Shadowspear, that's 10. And Patchwork has already got the counter, so it doesn't matter. It's not like a construct where losing a Lotus Petal is the difference. And this has Shadow, so it can't block. I think we may have just about won this one. All right, in the nick of time, we managed to win that one. That was a really interesting game, to be fair. The Entomb playing around our Force of Negation was really sweet from our opponent. And it certainly set them up to get their big monster into play. But we did manage to just do a big clonk of 10 at the end, which really helped. So we finished with a 3-2 record, which isn't too shabby. We got absolutely annihilated by the check pile deck, which is, I think, to be expected. Let's have a look at this deck. So the improvements to this deck versus the one I played a few weeks ago. This one, I think, it's got an additional Chalice, I think, which is nice, over the second Sir Ginger. Sir Ginger hasn't really impressed me too much. I think the difference between having Ward and not having Ward is huge, especially since, you know, our Patchworks and our Cannoneers, they're not soaking up removal. So they've got this removal in hand that's probably just going to end up pointed at Sir Ginger quite often. Now, yes, you do get to do some scrying with it, which is not nothing. We certainly managed to scry away a bunch of draws with it in one game. It didn't matter, but we did get to, you know, see a load of cards like we were playing Dragon's Rage Channel or something. That was pretty sweet. But I'm not wholly convinced on the Sir Ginger. But obviously people are putting up numbers and, you know, the people playing this deck regularly are far better at playing this deck than I am. So you should definitely take their opinion, not mine. But I'm going to give it anyway, because that's what you're here for, right? But I kind of would like maybe another Cannoneer. It did feel like in quite a few games we're like, okay, how are we going to get through our opponent? We need something like a Cannoneer to do that. So I wouldn't be opposed to running a third Cannoneer here. Like, at the end of the day, it's still a blue card for Force of Will. But I think being able to have just a threat that can't be answered, you can grow it up nicely, and it's always going to get through and connect and not get sort of roadblocked, because the Patchwork Automaton can just get chump blocked a fair bit. Like, in an ideal world, we'd probably just run 2 more of these, or maybe 4 more of these would be good, but we don't live in that world, unfortunately. Or maybe fortunately, actually. So you kind of got to have to make do. And obviously, Sir Ginger is very nice on the curve, being another 2-drop like Patchwork, so you can play this, then dump out a load of baubles and get some really good selection. But we never really got to do the whole turn 1. Actually, no, we did once. We did the turn 1 Sir Ginger and then pumped a load of stuff out. And that ended up being a mistake. And we should have just played the Chalice instead of doing that. That doesn't mean that's Sir Ginger's fault. That's my fault for prioritizing the pressure over having the Chalice down. So I think this deck is pretty solid, obviously. It puts up results relatively often. We've come a long way since when the 8-cast deck first emerged, and it looked a lot different to this. It had loads and loads more card advantage. It was just drawing all the cards. It wasn't trying to play Patchworks and stuff. It was like, we're going to Chalice you, we're going to Sigh, make loads of 1/1s, we're just going to draw loads of cards with Thought Monitors and Thoughtcast, hence the 8-cast name. So it's changed quite a lot, and it's got a lot more aggressive, but that's because Legacy is more aggressive and faster at the moment, I would say. There's lots and lots of creatures in Legacy right now, which is another reason I'm not such a fan of Sir Ginger. Because there's more creatures in Legacy than there has been historically speaking, it means that we end up with more removal in Legacy. So people are going to have more removal, and it's going to get pointed somewhere in our deck, and it's going to end up just hitting our Sir Ginger. Like, if it hits Urza Saga tokens, that doesn't feel so bad. But Surginger, we're basically just trading 1 for 1 when the whole point of our deck is we kind of like, you know, all of our cards sometimes cycle upwards more than once. Like with an Emry in play, we start doing like loads and loads of baubles. We just end up with a Howling Mine. Our Thoughtcast is a 2 for 1. Our Thought Monitor is a 2 for 1. And then our actual threats are hard to answer. So that's kind of what we're trying to do. So just having a Surginger out there that's just going to get punked by a lot of removal is awkward, I would say. But I do see the attraction to it. We did also draw our own 1-drops a lot underneath our own Chalice of the Void. That was a recurring theme this league, which is just kind of what happens when you play this deck sometimes. And, you know, we want to ideally find these off of Urza Saga so we don't worry about the Chalice, but sometimes it will happen and you won't be able to recast them. So if you're relying on recasting Aether Spellbomb or something, that can be awkward. Because that is an engine that you can set up with Emry where you can constantly recast your Spellbomb and they can just never keep a creature, and then whatever creature you do have can do the damage and win you the game. We kind of don't have that line with the 3 Chalices because quite often we're going to have a Chalice, or if we're milling a bunch of cards, maybe we're going to be putting the Chalice into play from the graveyard, and then we kind of cut off that line for ourselves, even though it's right to do. So there's a little bit of tension there, which is something that people who are more proficient at this deck than I will probably be better at navigating. Nevertheless, I think we did a reasonable job today. We definitely made some missteps, but I picked up on them, I think. There's probably some I didn't, but generally speaking, at least I sort of examined how we could have done things differently and better, which I think is important. Like I said, I've barely played with this deck. I think this is maybe the 5th time at most I've played this deck, and that's including previous iterations that were very different to this, and probably including Blue Painter in that too. So take my advice with a pinch of salt, but this deck is the real deal, and you should always have an eye on it. This is one of the reasons why people play a bunch of Artifact Hate in sideboards, and you shouldn't neglect Artifact Hate in your sideboards either. Alright, I think we're done for today, so thank you very much for watching, and thank you to DNSolver for winning a challenge and giving us this deck to play. And remember to like and subscribe, it really does help the channel out. Okay, thank you for watching, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.